We're standing in Boston's public garden. It is not the public gardens, and it is not Boston Garden, which was the old name of the TD Garden. It is the public garden, and it is known as the oldest public botanical garden in the United States. Now, it's not the oldest park here. It's actually next to Boston Common. So you have Boston Common first, followed by the public garden. But this is half the size and half the age, actually, of Boston Common. Originally, the area we're standing in during high tide was underwater because the Charles River, which separates Boston from Cambridge, was a tidal river. We didn't have any locks at the time. And so during high tide, all of this up to the edge of the common was underwater. During low tide, we'd be standing in a marsh. And the marsh was okay until the 1820s, when they built a dam over part of this Back Bay area. And then people started throwing a lot of garbage and junk in it, and it got to have a terrible stench. So there was a general decision that perhaps we would fill this area in and create land which had been underwater during high tide. So this was the very first area that was filled. They began in 1837. A group of horticulturalists had this idea of a botanical garden. And they started putting various plantings in, but it didn't really take. And there was a back and forth with the city. Was it going to work? Was it not going to work? And there were even some arguments as to whether we should have buildings here instead and use it for housing or other kinds of business buildings. But by 1859, they decided officially, okay, we're really going to commit to this. There's going to be no building here unless it's some kind of structure related to horticulture. And they created this. And today, we see the results of this. Beautiful plantings, beautiful not only flowers, but trees. We're standing here by the lagoon. It's surrounded by a group of weeping willows and all kinds of gorgeous, some indigenous, some not indigenous trees here. Also a great deal of public art. So it's a really beautiful place to be. What's curious is right behind me here is water, but this is artificial. So even though in colonial times this was real water, that was eliminated, but this was built in 1861 in its stead. This is a 3-acre lagoon. It's about, in various places, 3 to 4 feet deep, and it's specifically for beauty and for pleasure. One of the first things that happened here is they had a boat concession where you could get rowboats here, and later on in 1877, a gentleman named Robert Paget actually changed that boat concession and invented the swan boats. But that's another story. One thing I wanted to mention, in the public garden, you see in the background this bridge, which goes over the center of the lagoon. I've seen written in a variety of places that this is the world's smallest suspension bridge, and it's also a copy of the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm sorry, but both of those are false. It is not a suspension bridge. You can see that it has the feeling of one and has some design that looks like suspension bridges, but it's not. And the second thing is this was built 14 years before the Brooklyn Bridge, so it's the reverse. If anybody copied anyone, the Brooklyn Bridge copied this. But still, this is a gem in Boston and a place you should try to visit.